Hello, my name is Crystal Petry. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of the Crystal Petry Podcast. Today's guest is Dr. Anthony Mays, Superintendent of Alief Independent School District, here to talk about the duties, the responsibilities, but also the passion and the vision that goes into being a superintendent. So thank you so much, Dr. Mays, for joining me.
Thank you for having me on your show today, Ms. Petrie. We appreciate you making some time for the educators.
Absolutely. Educators are the most important. I mean, we all wouldn't be here without educators.
This is
We all wouldn't be here. Now, I do want to inform you that you are my first superintendent on this podcast. So
wow.
no
Okay.
pressure. No pressure.
That's pretty awesome.
Yes. So thank you so much for joining me. So for my audience that's listening and watching, can you tell us where is Alief ISD located?
So Alief ISD is actually right in Houston, Texas. It's in the southwest part of Houston, Texas, known as by some the SWAT. So
Okay.
again, we are southwest Alief, Texas, and so we are nestled between Spring Branch, Fort Bend, and Houston. And so and then Sugarland to the immediate south. So we're right there, 40,000 deep, right there in that little in the center of that whole little dynamic right there.
Okay. And that was going to be my next question. How many children do you have in your district? Is
We
it, go
go
ahead?
ahead, sir. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, is it 40,000?
40,000 students. We serve 40,000 students. 96 different languages spoken. Majority Hispanic population. Next being my African American, and then after that, my Asian population being about 10%.
Okay.
But again, 96 different languages spoken here. Chinatown, off of Bel Air,
Mhm.
which is of course, a landmark here in Houston. Runs straight through Alief. So does the major economic hub known by Wall Street, right there on Westheimer. And so, again, lots of different things going on right here in Alief.
So your school district, I would venture to say, is one of the more inclusive, especially as for a student population, school districts that we have in the area.
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely have to be. I mean, our students come from all over the country, and so when you talk about, students coming to realize their, what we know as the American dream, it starts here in Alief often, and so our students may come with no English language, and we get them to, of course, oftentimes learn and master the English language, and sometimes they end up being national speech and debate champs. Others they may be just the valedictorian or the salutatorian of their class, but you get a chance to watch that whole maturation and development of individuals coming to America to discover the American dream, and so that's exciting for us.
Excellent. Now, Dr. Mays, what led you into the field of education? Was this a childhood dream growing up?
So I won't even say that it was a dream. I mean, I grew up with two sisters, and we had long and boring summers. My mom had to work, and so oftentimes we would be in the house, and I was responsible for those two little jokers, and so it was like, well, what can we do? So oftentimes we found ourselves working through the old workbooks, from the school year, and completing tasks just to make the day go by faster. And so I would say that's probably the root of me becoming an educator. We didn't have a lot of conversations about college or the future. I like to say we have very low college knowledge in my house, but Houston Tillotson, which was where I went to undergrad, sent me like a $500 book scholarship, and that kind of was like the seed that just bloomed into where I am now. So none of it was like foreplanned or something I thought of. It just it kind of came together in an organic way, but a lot of pieces were there along the way to kind of guide me to where I am now.
I think, Dr. Mays, that I never use absolutes, but I feel like so many people played school growing up. You know, you had the teacher, you had the one student, or the teddy bears, the student in the classroom. I feel like so many people played teacher growing up. That was all we knew. That's all we could
Yeah,
do.
you couldn't go anywhere. You stuck in the house all day. So it's like, okay, well, what are we gonna do? And it wasn't like how these kids grow up now, where you may have a TV in every room. My grandmother had a TV, and it was like, if you were lucky, she'd let you come in there and watch, something with her. But once the stories came on, you had to go find somewhere else to go and something else to do.
Absolutely. Or Wheel of Fortune. Once Wheel of Fortune came on, you was out of there unless you was sitting and watching. Or maybe that was just my background.
No, no, I mean, those were the shows. You naming them.
Yes.
In the morning,
Yes.
you got to watch. What was it? The Price is Right,
Price is Right. Absolutely.
and Donahue.
Bill Donahue. Oh my God, you bringing me back. You bringing me back. And I'm also telling my age with that, but that's okay. That's okay. Did your sisters end up in the education field as well?
No. Like I said, I was the only one that went off and went to college, and my little sister. I like to say informally, she was an educator because she oftentimes found herself in daycares and managing daycares. Now she's on the other side of that, managing in an office the documentation for kids and stuff like that. But she's always found herself either being a direct caretaker of pre-K students, adolescent students, or been a manager in that capacity. But and then my other sister went into like just customer service. So it's just one of those things where we didn't have a formal plan per se. So I feel extremely blessed to kind of be where I am, and be able to support and share with my family, just all the things that I get to learn and take away from my journey.
Right, absolutely. Dr. Mays, what challenges, if any, have you experienced on your path to becoming the superintendent of Alief ISD, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah. I think, the challenges go around just this has been a new space, for me. Like, it's a new journey. I had a aunt who she went to Texas Southern University for a little bit. And then she, again, that ended abruptly. And she came back home to try to help take care of, her sisters, my mom, and work with my grandmother to provide for the family. So that was kind of like the gist of like, if I got a background in where I am, it was, learning vicariously through her lived experience, because she ended up being like a manager at Texas Instruments just with, the little college education she had, it propelled her to those opportunities. So oftentimes when I would run into these situations in the corporate structure, because education is a corporate structure, people may not always acknowledge it as such, but man, it's very much a huge bureaucracy. I would be able to lean and depend on her for just little life lessons that I was able to learn from her. She's passed away now, but that's kind of been my journey all along the way. I call people's names because I like to always pay homage to them. I had a former superintendent. He was at the time my principal, but I was like, hey, if I can go work for Marcus Nelson, who was the principal of John B. Conley at the time, I can learn how to be a leader like him, because I would read about him in the newspaper. And so it's just always trying to figure it out. I think that's been the biggest challenge, and trying to find somebody to be able to learn and grow from. And so Marcus Nelson was one of those individuals. Watched him become a superintendent, watched him be a principal, watched him lead in different capacities. Got a chance to see his assistant principal, who was then my immediate supervisor, go on to be a principal, go on to be a central office leader in education, and then go on to be superintendent of multiple districts. So, you try to grab hold of those exemplars or those individuals that you see kind of moving through this journey, and you try to learn from their walk. And so
Mhm.
that's how I've mastered. I won't say mastered. That's how I've grown, and through the difficulties that I face as a leader.
What would you say, Dr. Mays? And I'm not going to say give me one thing, but maybe just the first thing that comes to mind, something that Marcus taught you about leadership.
Yeah, I think Marcus had a unique situation at the time. John B. Conley was a suburban affluent campus in Pflugerville. outside of Austin, Texas. So it was different to see him step into a leadership role as an African American in this environment that was didn't quite look like the urban situation that we're normally placed in. And so just watching him, navigate that pretty fearlessly with a diverse population of individuals that he served as a leader, and students too, because you had the situation where while it was in the suburbs, it was on the edge of Austin, Texas, and you got overflow from the urban situation, and so you had this dynamic where you had these middle class educators that hadn't quite been exposed to the urban situation, trying to figure out how do I meet the needs of these students, and so just watching him school everybody up and get everybody to the place was something that I just say, I mean, I got a chance to just watch him move through it, and you never saw him, phased by it. I just never saw him routed by it. He just mapped his way forward, and we all just followed along as people that worked for him.
Okay. Now, you were a teacher before you became superintendent. So, talk to us a little bit about that experience, you being in the classroom, and how long were you a teacher?
Yeah, I go back to the fact that initially when I came out of college to being a history or a science teacher. And, I was, like I said, I was reading about Marcus Nelson in this newspaper saying, like, hey, if I can get to his campus. Ended up working with a counselor, student services counselor on our campus, Kevin Jones. He knew Marcus Nelson because it was his fraternity brother. He was like, hey, I'm going to talk to him, see if I can get you an interview. He got me an interview. Marcus Nelson interviews me, offers the opportunity for me to come work on this campus. But he says, he offers me, the first position he offers me is like a AP history class with seniors. Mind you, I'm like, I just graduated from college.
Yeah, we're the same age.
Like, I'm sitting there like, man, like in my mind, I was a little intimidated by that. I'm just sitting here with seniors, and I'm like, I literally just graduated college. So he was like, well, basically he was like, well, if you want to be on the team, I got one more opportunity, and that's when he introduced me to James Colbert. So James Colbert, I actually interviewed with him to be a teacher assistant. And just in that interview process, he said, no, you're not a teacher assistant, you're a teacher. And he ended up offering me a position to be a special education teacher. And so I had to go back to school to get the alternative certification to then become a special education teacher. But that experience as a special education teacher is what opened up the world of both the classroom and administration to me, and kind of led to me becoming an administrator. I taught for 4 years, but what became a skill set for me was kind of navigating the world of special education. So I taught for 4 years and immediately became an administrator over special education as they worked to move self-contained students into the inclusive environment,
Yes.
in the classroom. And so that was kind of like my work. It was like, okay, I used to be a special education teacher where I was, working with students with special needs, working in an inclusion environment, to now I'm this administrator responsible for helping get students out of a self-contained environment to an inclusive environment, and helping train teachers on inclusion models to accommodate those students that are now coming into their classroom. So my time in the classroom was short-lived, but it was very impactful and led to, my opportunities as an administrator and the skill set that I took into, being a school administrator.
Okay. And of course, I don't know, but is being a teacher and then ultimately becoming a superintendent, is that a big jump? It sounds like it. It sounds like it's a big jump.
It is, and it's not one that I planned. I really enjoy being a teacher, and my goal, again, I like to call these names. Odessa Raven was my principal at Morningside Middle, and she was kind of like my mental model for, watching this fearless woman check everybody that walked in this building and make sure everybody behaved and everybody respected the teachers and everybody learned. I was like, man, I want to be that person one day, but it was one of those things where once I got to that place, that was as far as I had kind of planned on going, was being this community leader, this community principal. Um, but as things were happening, I got a chance to, be promoted and then supervise principals here in Houston initially with the Department of Education with Harris County. So, and then from there, I got a chance to go on to be chief of schools in Austin, ISD, where I supervised 114 campuses and 77,000 students. And then the Alief opportunity presented itself, and now here I sit, having not ever necessarily planned on being a superintendent, but just trying to be obedient to God and the signals that He kind of showed in my life.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like it wasn't your plan, but it definitely was His. Jeremiah 29.
Mm-hmm. Amen. I will attest to that.
Yeah.
I will be the first to not say, "Hey, I had it all thoughtfully planned out, and this is what I wanted to happen." No, there have been many of opportunities that I've been blessed and afforded to have. That they were not something that I planned.
I was having this conversation, Dr. Mays, with someone a couple days ago. We both were stating there is a lack of male teachers,
Mhm.
and there is especially a lack of African American male teachers in the school districts. Why would you say that number is so low?
Yeah, a lot of times we know that African American males don't necessarily have the best experience in the education, as they matriculate through the education system, right? So it's not something that people are running back to all the time, right? Then you got the other factors of education not necessarily being known for the compensation, and for us as males and females, we all want to be able to make a decent salary to be able to take care of our families. Um, but what I would, shameless plug to those thinking about becoming educators, you know, of the top five list of people that are generally millionaires by the time they retire, teachers are always on that top five list.
Are they?
Man, teachers are always on the top five list just because of them being good stewards of the money that they make and managing every dollar in the way that they do. If you go back and you look from year to year, there's typically a top five list, and teachers are usually on that list for the top five careers of folks that are millionaires by the time they retire.
I
So,
did not know that. I'm definitely going to have to go and research that.
so that's just a plug, but you got this misnomer, and I won't even say it's a misnomer, but the people feel like they want a larger wage. They didn't necessarily have a good experience while they were here. A lot of times, it's a dream deferred for folks that do make it to the college setting, and in the sense, it's like I'm settling if I take a classroom job, versus me going out here and becoming an engineer or becoming an attorney or becoming a doctor, those things that people, generally aspire to. What I always tell people is, those tools, those same analytical tools or those same tools that allow you to be successful as a doctor, a lawyer, or engineer, they transfer to the classroom and also allow you to be successful with teaching students. And so, there's a number of different things that keep African American males from pursuing the field, but those are two of the big pieces. And a lot of times, if you're sitting in the classroom as an African American male, oftentimes what you may have in front of you is in most instances, is a female, a white female or an African American female, right? And that doesn't necessarily signal to a kid growing up that this is where I should go. This is the place for me. But I think when we're intentional, Houston Tillotson has uh, um, a male teacher program that we got a chance to work with them to collaborate on when I was in Austin ISD, and just being intentional about developing pathways for African American males to go into the classroom. Prairie View, we're working with them here in Alief. I believe they also have one specifically focused on math, I believe. And so it's just trying to find partners that are intentional about recruiting those male students and getting them into the classroom.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Dr. Mays, what does being a superintendent mean to you on a personal level?
Yeah. On a personal level, for me, it's about creating opportunity. I acknowledge the fact that, I sit in a seat of power, that I get a chance to. I tell anybody that's a principal that, you get to control the purse strings, you get to control the opportunities that are afforded to our students. You get to determine whether this student is going to have a good, strong educator in their life, or, they're going to have a weak educator that doesn't offer them a lot of opportunities to learn and grow and, build their dreams out, right? So, for me, when I think about being the superintendent, is, one, being a good steward of all of the resources that are available to me, to make sure that I'm creating as many opportunities as I can for the 40,000 students that I serve here in Alief, and beyond, because, I get the chance to work in some different capacities, but it's always for me about paying the opportunity forward that I know education gave me.
How does, and if I say this incorrect, please correct me, with
Yeah.
you sitting at the top, with
Mhm.
you sitting at the top of Alief ISD as the superintendent, Dr. Mays, how do you balance the leadership that you have to have sitting at the top with the demands of your teachers, your students, your principals, the janitors, the coaches, with everyone wanting something from you?
Yeah, yeah. I always tell people you can't give from an empty bucket. So the first thing is, I do my best to keep my bucket full. And for me, I'm typically fulfilled by the opportunity to give to others. So it kind of works out because, as I give, I'm nourished, right? And so it's, you give as much as you can, but at the same time, the thing I'm growing to learn, of course, is, as you find yourself tired, and you gotta go recharge the battery and take care of yourself so you can do the thing that you love to do. So, like today, I mean, we just had, a big celebration here in Alief with, pretty much, all of our staff coming out to just eat, break bread together, and celebrate the holidays. And, just got through competing against some of our just cross departmental teams a few minutes ago, and some little games, and just having fun with them, right? And just sitting down and being able to have some conversations. Got a chance today to go around and collect donations from everybody for our custodial and nutrition staff. And like I told them, I was like, last year we raised about $600. This year we raised over 1,200, and we're able to bless those teammates of ours with over $200 in a little gift, just to say thank you and that we appreciate you. But it's, man, you do everything you can while you can, because it's a blessing to be able to sit and do it for anybody that's in need. So whether it's a student that's in need, a custodian that's in need, or a teacher that's in need, it's like, if I can meet you where you are and support you in any way, then I want to be able to do that. But I'm always candid with them if I can't do something that they want me to do, right? And I think that's fair and reasonable, because it's not a unrealistic expectation on me to perform a miracle that I may not be able to, right?
Mhm.
But just know that if I can help you, or if I can meet your needs, then I want to be able to do that.
Dr. Mays, what is your responsibility to the community of Southwest Houston, the community of Alief, and how does that look?
Yeah. So I go back to, again, working collaboratively, right? So, right now for me as a superintendent here in Alief, 40,000 students, you know, we just passed a VADER, which is a tax increase, right? We had to go to our public to ask for additional $15 million of revenue to meet the needs of our students. Um, you know, we had a record number of voters come out during this election, right? But for us, that was our focus. Our focus was on, educating our public, getting folks, getting them registered to vote. Yes, we want to win the election, but the goal was to, hey, educate the population and get as many folks registered to vote as we could. And again, that showed in the record number of folks that came out, right? But you also do that in collaboration. We work with a wonderful commissioner and Commissioner Briones. Got a city councilwoman, Ms. Tiffany Thomas. You got Senator Lizzie Fletcher. We have a group of folks over here that, for me, it's really us working together to make improvements and enhance the area. And so with Commissioner Briones is, hey, let's get some sidewalks out here so the folks don't have to walk through ditches when the kids are trying to make it to school safely. With Lizzie Fletcher is, bringing down millions of dollars in federal funds to make sure that we get electric buses, that are traveling through our communities where we know, our folks are more adversely impacted by asthma, right? So it's
Wow.
doing all of the things that you can to make conditions better for the people that you serve here in Southwest Texas,
The
Southwest.
electric buses. Now that's a thought. I've never even thought about that.
Yeah. We were, I want to say, number one or number two, in terms of ISDs that receive funding to get that kicked off. And so, I'm happy and proud to say that. And we're going to be working on getting that going here in Alief, and making sure that our community benefits from us being forward thinking in the work that we're doing.
What would you say are some of the most important qualities and characteristics of an effective superintendent?
I definitely think listening. I think that it's easy to come in with a vision in the sense of what you want to do and where you want to go and what you believe needs to happen. But I think it's important to listen to the people that you're charged with serving to figure out, where do we want to go together, and I think if you can do that and execute, what they've shared and what we've collaboratively developed, I think that's a key piece, right? Um, I think being able to go out here and be the spokesman for my district, being able to celebrate everything that makes A-League great, I think all of those pieces are critical too. But listening is, I would say, probably the one of the biggest the biggest pieces that you need to be able to do, because if you don't listen, there's so much that you can miss. And the crazy thing about this role is you got to listen for what's said and what's not said.
Yes.
So it's like you can miss something if you gloss over what wasn't said, because there are some assumptions that you may have to make, and there may be some probing that you need to do, to really try to get to the root of what you may be working to solve, or work together to try to fix as a problem that's recognized in our district.
Okay. Dr. Mays, how long have you been superintendent of Alief ISD?
Now I am in year 3.
You're
I'm
three. Okay. Congratulations. Which leads me to my next question. How have you, and I'm assuming that you're still doing this, but how have you been able to build trust with your teachers, with the parents, with the community as the superintendent of Alief ISD?
Yeah, I think it's just communication, and I would say trust is building trust is an ongoing process, right?
Mhm.
It's not that you build it and then it's done, right? Or you build it and then I stop working, right? No, it's like constantly working to stay connected. Again, we have a huge Asian population here in Alief, so it's trying to make sure that I'm actively trying to connect with our community, with that community, being present to support events. We were intentional about strengthening that relationship, and even now we host the Lunar New Year celebration at our facility. Right, I was intentional about building trust and building relationships to try to establish connections where it's like, hey, this district is our district. It's here for us. And so I have 3 kids in the district. I think that also helps build trust in terms of the work that we're doing. I have a baby in elementary, one in intermediate, and one in high school. So I think that most of them would know that I have skin in the game, and it's really about making things better for my children and theirs. And so there's a lot that goes into building trust, but I don't ever think you reach the goal of, oh, it's built. No, it's like we keep working at it. We keep trying to make those connections. We keep trying to push in and build relationships. We keep trying to push in and have conversations and communicate what it is that we're trying to accomplish, and hear what it is that my community and my public expects from us.
Right, right. How do you manage competing priorities like student outcomes, teacher needs, district budgets?
Hmm.
Or does it just depend on the day as a superintendent?
Yeah, I think it depends on prioritizing, right? Like,
Mhm.
we can say competing, but really something is a priority, and we have to figure out what that priority is. We may not always agree, and we may walk away from the table in two different places. But as did we go through a process of having a conversation where we all could identify that these are the priorities, and then have a process for arriving at, okay, this is the one that's most critical that we need to tackle first.
Mhm.
For us, special education is a definite priority, right? When we talk about our last pay raise, we were intentional about making sure that we gave our lowest paid employees the biggest percentage raise,
Wow.
because we recognized that they were the most in need given the circumstance, right? Now it was across the board raise, but of course it feels different, for those that
Yes.
are the lowest rung in terms of pay. And so again, we may not always agree on the priorities, um, or we may call them competing, but we do have to try to dig deep and prioritize what's important, and with the resources that you have on the table, address those priorities with the understanding that as we can get to those other things that may be lower on the list, we are committed to addressing those things too. But given the limited resources, let's address these things first,
Right.
and be transparent as we communicate that, and not trying to hide that, not trying to, these are the priorities, these are the limited resources that we have. This is where the resources are going to go now, but we're committed to fixing the other pieces as we go.
How do you handle, and this is me on
Mhm.
the outside, I feel like superintendents, regardless to what you do, and not you specifically, but I'm talking about the role as superintendent,
Mhm.
regardless to what you do as a superintendent, sometimes it feels like you never get it right. If you say it's sunny outside, they're mad at you. If you say it's not sunny outside, they're mad at you. How do you handle that? How do you address that?
You don't. You just accept the fact that is what it's going to be. Like,
Yeah.
you will find yourself driving yourself crazy, if you think that you can make 100% of the people happy. Like,
Right.
that's just not real, and I think that it's one of those things where, like, when we look at the CEO of AT&T, are we expecting the CEO of AT&T to make everybody happy? When we look at the CEO of Uber, or Amazon been another example. It's like, man, we know Jeff Bezos don't make everybody happy in Amazon. You see it play out on the news. You see people
Hmm.
protesting. So it's like, to expect the CEO of, you know, I serve more than 6,000 employees within this organization. We have a $460 million budget. Like, there there are going to be decisions that we make, whether it's as a board, or as a team, or for me as the leader of the organization, that there's going to be at any moment, 40 to 50% of the people that don't agree with that decision. And you have to, unfortunately, you have to know that that's how it goes.
Hmm.
That's how it goes. And like, and sometimes, there are hurtful moments when you're doing what's best for the organization, in the sense of, for us, when I walked into Alief, we had a $19 million budget deficit. And so we had to
Wow.
go through the process of determining what do we go without, so that we can provide this raise that our staff needs. And the things that you had to go without were challenging to say goodbye to. They were really challenging to say goodbye to, for folks that had been here for a long time. But you know, when you ask people, well, where do you expect for me to get the equivalent of $9 million to give a 3% raise? Where do I get it without trimming some things to get it? And those are the moments when I say, no, we get to sit in this role because we can make those, we can hear it, we can listen, and we can make those tough decisions. Not everybody will be willing to make those tough decisions. Not everybody's going to want to do the hard thing to get to the resolution that we have to get to, but that's what we get to do, right? And you do it knowing that, again, not everybody's going to be happy.
Okay. I love how you said it, but you're right. Not everyone is built to make decisions like that
Yeah.
at all, at all. Have you been able to balance that budget?
Yeah. So the first year we did, we trimmed the 19 million.
You did it in 1 year?
Yeah. So we got to about,
Wow.
we didn't trim all of 19 million. We did the 19 million over the course of the 2 years, but the first year we were able to get to a balanced budget and give a 3% raise. The next year we were looking at a slight deficit of like 2 million, I believe. And then this year we rolled into the school year with a 6.2 million, I believe, deficit with the Vader on the ballot. But with the increase, the community approving the referendum, we got the influx of additional revenue, so we're able to take care of that deficit that we forecast. So
Have you been able to sit back and appreciate that? And again, I know you have not done this by yourself. I know you have an amazing team around you that helps you with this. But as the leader, the superintendent of ISD, you get all the credit for the good and the bad.
yeah.
Have you been able to sit back and give yourself credit for balancing a deficit of $19 million in 3 years? Because that's huge.
No, you just, so for me and most of the people that, if you were talking to Kiana, I'm sure she'd tell you like like no. I mean, we just try to get the stuff done. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like what do we need to do? Like, all right, we need to go out here and pull all the weeds from the volleyball field so the kids can play on the volleyball field, and we need to paint these poles and get somebody to give us money to get a net. It's like, okay, well, let's do it, and we go do it, and we move on, and we sit out there and watch everybody enjoy themselves playing volleyball, knowing that, hey man, we did the work that we needed to do for everybody at HT to play volleyball.
Yeah.
Like that's just the stuff that you do, and I think the gratification is in watching the needs be met.
Mm,
You know,
yes.
because it's not gonna be a situation where, man, everybody gonna be walking around singing your praises, saying, "Attaboy, good job." Now you may have a few that recognize and say, "Oh man, okay." Like, job well done. But oftentimes that's not going to be the case. And again, man, you got to be okay with that. It's like, hey, are we going to be able to meet some needs that we have with our system in terms of compensation and addressing inflation within our organization? Yep. When we get a little breathing room, but we still got to keep working.
Well, I am singing your praises, Dr. Mays. Congratulations, because that is huge.
Thank you.
That is absolutely huge. Let's talk about the future of the classroom, Dr. Mays. How do you envision the future of the classrooms evolving in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, you got, man, so many people that are gravitating to homeschool opportunities, or virtual school. Like you have more now than you've had before, taking advantage of those opportunities. So when we went through COVID, of course, we went to online. So people saw that, oh, well, cool. You don't necessarily have to go to school all day to learn or be educated. And so I think that we have to continue to get used to a new normal where a virtual option is something that, if it's available, for a student to move through educating themselves at a self pace, you got to make sure that you're offering that. For families that choose homeschool, trying to figure out how do you still stay connected to those students and those families for, if they do decide that, while I want to do homeschool for elementary, middle school, I need to socialize my kid. Let me bring them back for middle school, and then maybe they'll come back home for high school. So, because families do make those kind of decisions, but how do you stay connected to those families so that as they're making those decisions, they know that, okay, this is Alief is an option for me. Um, There's a lot of stuff that changes with education in terms of the what, but there are some things that are, pretty much the same. It's like, can students read? Can students analyze the text that they're reading? Can they synthesize information that's in front of them? Are we giving them information, opportunities to synthesize in the classroom so that when they're out of the classroom, they can synthesize too, right? Are we giving them opportunities to do high level math? Um, by putting strong instructors in front of them, so when they get out of school here in Alief, they can go to college and take these challenging math courses that open up greater opportunities in terms of job opportunities that close socioeconomic gaps, right? Because they get the chance to do these STEM jobs where they're making high
Right.
wages. So it's making sure that we put those opportunities in front of our students, and make sure that we are um, focused and intentional about doing that, so that when they do go out here into society, they're well prepared to be thoughtful leaders, so that they can take care of us when we become old folks.
Please help us, Dr. Mays. Please help us.
Yeah, they gonna have to. They're gonna have to take care of us when we get old.
Yes.
Like, okay, but if we don't give them the tools that they need, then shame on us.
Absolutely. Shame on us. Something else that has become a big discussion, especially in the state of Texas, since COVID, has been school choice.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about school choice? And can you explain that to my audience for those who may not know what that is?
Yeah. So school choice in Texas right now is centered around this notion of vouchers, and giving people a voucher to opt out of, whether it's a low performing school or a school that, they just may not be educating a child in the way that you feel like they should be being educated. For me, I'll say this: I am a supporter of school choice in the realm of, like, I don't think any student should be made to go to a failing school. Therein again, I hold ourselves accountable to making sure that we are doing absolutely everything that we can to meet the needs of our students, right? And that our students are having great teachers in front of them, great leaders in front of them, and every opportunity to, like I said, realize their dreams. Um, but I think that the challenge is when you say, hey, I'm going to give money or a voucher to a private school that may or may not be held accountable in the same way that a public school is, right? So then it's like when the parent is looking and they're making a decision and they say, well, my kid is going to go to this school because this school is better. Well, by what metric? You know, like, are we using the same tools to evaluate the success of the public school and the private school, right? And if you're not doing that, then it's one of those things. Are we comparing apples to apples? And so, school choice is not a bad thing. We offer school choice opportunities right here in Alief, where a family can apply to Alief Cur or Alief Early. Um, we just won a blue ribbon for Alief Early, one of the best schools in the country. 300 schools that were recognized throughout the United States. Alief Early was one. Kerr and Alief Early were number one and number two on a recent niche list that recognizes the best schools in the state of Texas. And so, number one and number two are both Alief schools, and these are choice schools. Families can apply for opportunities on these campuses, and they can go to these schools and again receive an excellent education. For me, I'm focused on creating more choice right here in Alief, because that's something that our public and our community does share. It's like we need more opportunities like Kerr and Alief Early, and so we're working on developing more of those opportunities. Um, but so far, it's been one of those things where choice can be painted as a bad thing or a good thing depending on who you're talking to. I think a family should have choice because I grew up in an urban environment, and I made some choices about my education just predicated on what I had witnessed as a student, where I felt like in one instance on one side of town I was learning one thing, My mom, I like to tell people my mom followed a rent special. So when we would go to the other side of town and I was in the other classrooms, it looked like something different.
Mhm.
So it was like, okay, hold on, I don't understand why they're ahead of where we are. And then when I go back to the original side of town, I'm now ahead of my peers. And it's like, okay, this isn't adding up. So consequently, I made a different choice when it came down to which high school I was going to go to, just because I recognized at the time what was an inequity. Of course, when I was growing up, I wouldn't have articulated that it was an inequity, but I just noticed something's different.
Right.
Something's different. My thing is, a kid should be able to go to any one of our schools here in Alief and get a quality education. They ought to be able to go in any classroom on any campus and get a good education that's going to prepare them for whatever is going to happen when they graduate, whether it's them going to work or them going out to college and deciding, man, I want to, become an academic or do whatever it is. We want to get them the tools that they need, regardless of what school they are here in A-Leaf or whatever classroom they're in. And so choice, again, can be a good thing
Mhm.
or it can be a bad thing, but in A-Leaf, we want it to be a good thing.
Dr. Mays, how do you, just piggybacking on your statement here recently, how do you prepare your students for jobs that we see now and even jobs that we have yet to see? Like tangibly, how do you figure out how am I going to prepare these 40,000 students for the jobs that we're seeing in 2025? But jobs in say 2023, 2030, excuse me, we don't know what those will look like.
Yeah. And that's when you go back to, like I said, those core competencies about, man, can all of our students communicate well, right? Like I said, we got 96 different languages right here. And it's really a matter of, okay, are we giving them the tools to be able to speak, read, and write? And I'm not talking about just speak, read, and write when they're by themselves. I'm saying even if they have to speak amongst a group of people or publicly speak. And so you go back to opportunities like speech and debate, and how can we make sure that our students get exposed to these opportunities, that even in the classroom that you get an opportunity to speak, whether it's in a small collaborative group that you're doing with your peers, or you're getting a chance to do a presentation to the entire class, like making sure that those students get those competencies. So that's not on anything specific, right? Like it's just making sure
Right.
that you leave, regardless of what the content is, you leave with the capability to collaborate with a group, talk through challenges, get to a resolution, or if I got to present in front of a classroom, I don't care what it is, whether it's on changing the car part or if it's on, again, something high level in science or math. It's like, did we give them the opportunity to do that while they were in our classroom, right? And so just looking at those competencies, it may not be, because you can't, some of these career fields are changing so fast
Yes.
that I went and did a site visit to East Latin, and it was awesome to hear them say, what they do is when their engineering students graduate or architectural engineering students graduate, they have them come back on a yearly basis to give them feedback on what the industry is looking like so they can make changes in real time to their program. So it's
That's a
not
great
like,
idea.
yeah, so it's not like when you leave this program, you're not going to have like you're gonna have, like you said, an old set of skills, and it's like, well, we don't do it like that no more.
Hmm.
We don't do it like that no more. So just having systems like that where you can know, like, okay, it, am I teaching a student what they need to have as they go out? But some of these competencies don't have to be specific to a certain field. It can just be, okay, we need to make sure this student can speak, read, and write. They can communicate, and we need to make sure we expose them to opportunities to do that.
Okay, excellent. What do you think, Dr. Mays, are some challenges that educators are facing in their classroom today?
Man, I often get discipline. Um, Teachers feeling like that students, the behaviors that they're seeing now are different than the behaviors that we've seen before. You got mental health challenges with students. I think that some of these are not new, but the rate at which we're seeing them, is probably new for teachers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think the other challenge that we have is that, there's not a lot of people going into the field of education, right? So we have what we call an associate teacher program, and these are people that didn't necessarily plan on being educators, but they're coming to education with whatever background they have, and we now have to teach you how to be an educator, right? So we now have to teach you pedagogy. So how do you deliver instruction to make sure that a student is learning? We have to teach you classroom management in terms of, hey, what are the interventions that you use to meet a kid that may be misbehaving or behaving inappropriately? How do you manage that, right? Because there's a whole body of work around these things, but if you've never aspired to be an educator, but now you're placed in a position of being a teacher and you don't have those tools, we now got to give you those tools, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it could be a situation where something appears to be hard, but it could be because we haven't quite given everybody the tools that they need to work through whatever those challenges are, right? So whether that's a concept that you're teaching in math or a behavior that you're seeing in a student, like these are all things that we gotta grow our toolkit to be able to handle, right? And even for us, for me as a superintendent, is trying to make sure that we got the system to support all the new needs that we have, not just for students, but for teachers that are working to meet the needs of students.
And how do you deal with teacher retention? Because I know, especially after COVID, and I'm sure it was big before COVID, but it was just really pushed out there in the media as far as teachers quitting
Yeah,
because of the discipline or the lack of discipline for the children in the classrooms. So, how do you handle teacher retention and help them with that misbehavior or mental health challenges that they are seeing in the classroom?
yeah. Well, one, I think we committed to, of course, making sure we got mental health counselors available for for our students, but we also saw an uptake in use of mental health resources for teachers too, right? So you try to make sure that you have those resources readily available for teachers and students. Um, I think it's one of those things where again, it's growing capacity, right? It's giving um, teachers support where, in some instances, they may not be getting it with a neighboring district, right? So I think we have one of the better retention rates in our area. We usually uh, rank pretty high in our area for retaining teachers, and I'm grateful for that. But it's really about the support that you can give a teacher that's, again, a new teacher that's in a classroom trying to figure it out. And so, do you have, mentor teachers? Do you have professional development? Do you have knowledgeable assistant principals that can guide a teacher that may be struggling? Do you have knowledgeable principals that are in a position that can guide, assistant principals that are supporting teachers? Because it's nothing more frustrating for a teacher than being in a classroom and wanting to accomplish something with a kid and not necessarily knowing the path forward, and then
Right.
you look into somebody that's supposed to be an expert in the way of your assistant principal or your instructional specialist or your coach, and you're like, I'm still not getting the guidance that I need. And so, with that being said, people make the decision to go try to do something else, and it's like we have to make sure that we have all of those pieces in place and that all of those individuals that serve in that role are competent and can help meet the needs of those teachers, because the teachers just want to meet the needs of students, and we want to be able to help them do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. As the superintendent for Alief ISD, what is your vision for that school district?
Yeah, so for us, our biggest thing is, like I said, we want to make sure that regardless of what our students leave us wanting to do, whether that's go into the military or go into a career or go to college,
Mhm.
that we have empowered them with the tools to be successful. We don't want our students to leave us here in A-Leaf and want to go get a college education, but we haven't provided them with the prerequisite skills to get on that college campus and be successful, right? We don't want them to go out into the workforce and we haven't given them credentials or giving them the tools to go out into the workforce, whether that's being able to talk with a boss, that they may, a
Mhm.
new boss that they may have, or talk with a colleague that they may now have in the professional environment, or certifications that they may need to access an opportunity that's in medicine or in the automobile industry. Like, we want to make sure that our students leave us ready for life. You know,
Hmm.
we want to make sure that they leave us ready for life. Consequently, that means there's a lot of work that we have to do to make sure that we are monitoring exactly what it is that we're trying to do. So, we focus on making sure that students can be strong performers on the SAT. We want to make sure that we're looking at, okay, how are students doing with earning various certifications when they leave us. Just all of those pieces are vital. Because again, you look up and you're like, well, why did I just spend 12 years in a school district if I can't go out here and take care of myself and my family?
Absolutely. Absolutely. How do you plan to ensure that Alief ISD remains innovative and competitive among schools in Texas?
Yeah, watching the data. It's going back to, like I said, I just told you, I said we number one and number two on that list, that niche
Which
list.
is amazing.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah, they're here in the A-Leaf. Like I said, we were recognized with the Blue Ribbon School. We're still growing though, right? Like, we're going out to Dallas ISD and Fort Worth ISD on in a few days to go look at some other schools that are doing something that we feel like they may be doing better than we are, and we want to be able to grow and offer those opportunities here in A-Leaf. So guess what? We're going out there to be able to uh, learn and grow. Uh-oh.
Hey, how are you?
You
My
may know.
college classmate. Hi. I believe that in a podcast too. It's so good to see you.
You too, you too.
You may know her.
A little bit.
So she came in and told me to wrap it up. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Oh, it's time for me to go talk to
Yeah,
you.
it is. Let me just go tell you.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Y'all gotta get out of here.
Get us- get out. Yeah, I can still call you later.
uh, so, but yeah, just looking at the data and growing for one another. We have some districts that do some things better than we do, and it's like, okay, let me go and check them out and try to figure out how can we grow in that respective area. Because yeah, it's us growing and learning from each other as practitioners. Because I mean, you got some districts that are knocking it out the park and different things that we are struggling with, and so it's like, okay, how can we get better? Well, let's go and let's continue to be lifelong learners and grow from the work that they're doing. And maybe we're doing something that they want to learn how to do, and they can learn from us.
Okay. And my final question for you, Dr. Mays, what legacy, and of course, you've been superintendent for only 3 years, so I don't even know if you start thinking about your legacy yet, but if you have, what legacy do you hope to leave behind as the superintendent at Alief ISD?
Yeah, I think it's systems, right? When we talk about like portrait of an Alief ISD graduate, we just wrapped that up as a team, right? My hope would be that would be something that's with Alief, even well after I'm gone, that you'll have a portrait of an Alief ISD graduate and what the future students should look like as they leave Alief, right? So that's something that you had portrait of an Alief ISD leader. That's also something that we just wrapped up. It's like, again, I would hope that portrait of an Alief ISD leader would, you know, even as I'm gone and away from here, that would be something that is here and is a part of our district, and that people will be able to use to determine, well, what are the competencies and the attributes that we want our students to leave us with, and that we want our leaders to come to us with, and make sure that they have as they lead or learn here in Alief ISD. Like, those are two pieces that I would think are a part of the legacy thinking. But then the other part is serving and addressing some of the needs that our community, as I walk through the door and just again try to listen, they said, hey, these are things that we would like to see And so our natatorium is one of those things where it's like, hey, we're working on trying to bring it to a place where our community can be proud and that our students can go in there and swim and do water polo and everything else.
Yes.
A press box. We still have the original press box, I believe it's had since Alief built our stadium. And so that's another piece that we're focused on delivering on is we want what we see our neighboring districts having in the way of, athletic facilities and stuff like that. So, whether it's our scoreboard, our press box, or the natatorium, or portrait of an Alief ISD graduate, or portrait of an Alief ISD leader, like those are things that I do think about that even when I'm gone, they'll still be here.
Absolutely. Well, we are coming to an end on this podcast, and you have been amazing, Dr. Mays. Thank you so much again for agreeing to be on the podcast. And I feel like Alief is in great hands with you at the helm. And I know you have an amazing team. My college classmate been one of them. But I think that they are in amazing hands with you at the lead.
Thank you. No, I am fortunate. We have a great team because I can't do it alone. So I'm fortunate.
Excellent, excellent. And to my listeners and to my viewers, thank you so much for tuning in and watching. You can get Dr. May's podcast and all of my other podcasts on YouTube Podcasts and Apple Podcasts. And remember, you always have time to listen and learn on the go.